Now, what about portraits? We all love portraits, the blurry backgrounds. Well, both devices can shoot portraits at 1x as well as 2x on the Note and 2.5x on the iPhone. And let's take a look at a few examples here. So this is using the primary camera. I think both are doing an overall great job. You can see that edges are not perfect. The pipe in the background, both the devices have missed it when it's kind of hit my face, so they've got a little bit confused. But nevertheless, both are taking excellent shots here. I've said this many times before, and I know I'm going to get some hate for it in the comments, but I do prefer skin tones on the iPhone compared to the Note, which does give you quite pale skin tones in my opinion. And especially for somebody like me who's got brown skin, I do find that the Note does try to brighten me up, shall we say. Now, what about if we take portraits at the zoomed in option, right? So it's 2x on the Note and it's 2.5 on the iPhone. And here, for me, it's an easy pick for the iPhone. This gives you roughly the equivalent of a 65mm lens on a pro camera. The Note is going for around a 50mm lens, and both actually good angle of view. The issue is the Note does not have a dedicated camera at 2 or 2.5x. It is using the primary camera and then it's punching in. And that does result in a softer shot compared to the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Again, the Note has brightened me up a little bit. And if we do look at edges, although both are doing a good job overall, the iPhone is doing better. Check out that pipe again. That has been blurred on the iPhone, whereas that has been missed out on the Note. Here's another portrait shot, and I think both are actually doing really good in terms of edges. I can't really see any defects here. The Note, once again, not as sharp as the iPhone. Now, I really wanted to test out on Extreme when it comes to portraits to see how they handle dynamic range when we are using the portrait mode, because there's a lot of computational photography happening in the background. And here we've got a lot of light coming from the side, and the iPhone, although it's not perfect and it has clipped some highlights on my face, I do think is doing an overall better job, whereas almost half my face has been kind of blown out on the Note 20 Ultra. If we do use the zoom on both of these, again, you can see that although the iPhone is not perfect, and it has made me quite a bit orange actually, it hasn't clipped as many highlights as the Note has, and the Note has actually made me look very yellow. So I am liking portraits better on the iPhone so far. And what about low light portraits? So thanks to the LIDAR scanner now on the iPhone, we can get really nice low light portraits as well. So here is a portrait from the primary cameras on both devices, and the iPhone, it's a sharper image, it's cleaner, and it's also got better colors. My skin is completely washed out on the Note. I'm looking very ghostly here. Now here's the thing, the iPhone can do portraits with night mode, but that is only with the 1x camera. As soon as you use the telephoto camera, then you can see the result is much darker. And it is sharper compared to the Note, but the Note is brighter. Now remember, that is because the Note is using the primary camera and cropping in. So it's not as sharp, but because it's the primary camera, it is brighter. Another portrait in low light, and again, I am liking the iPhone here a lot more. It's just a brighter image, it's sharper, the colors are better. Now here, when we do go in with the zoom cameras, then the iPhone appears even darker. And again, that is because it's using the telephoto camera. The Note is cropping in to the primary camera. So again, it's softer, but it is brighter compared to the iPhone. Now, just to kind of test this out, what I did is I got the primary camera image and then I actually just expanded it, because that's essentially what the Note is doing. And here you can see that the image is soft as the Note image is soft, but it is much brighter. So that is just something that I did want to touch on. I wish Apple did have the night mode with the telephoto camera for portraits, because although they wouldn't be as good as the primary camera, at least they would give you better results. Now let's move on to low light images. And honestly speaking, I think both do a really good job. There are slight differences in color. The Note tends to lean towards cooler tones, whereas the iPhone tends to lean towards warmer tones. On this example, I actually really like both. I really can't pick a winner between them. I think both are doing a really good job. Here is another image, and here, although both are doing good, I do prefer the Note 20 Ultra. It just does look a tad sharper. And the iPhone, when you are shooting into street lights, can give you a lot of these dots. So I do prefer the Note 20 Ultra here. However, in this shot, I do prefer the iPhone. The iPhone is a little bit sharper and it also has less noise in the cloud areas. What about an indoor low light shot? I think both are doing great here. Once again, cooler on the Note, warmer on the iPhone. I think when it comes to low light photography, both are really, really good from the primary cameras. But what about the ultra wide cameras? Well, on the ultra wide cameras, we do have night mode on the iPhone this year. Last year we did not. And here I think neither of these are great. They're not that sharp, so I would call this one a bit of a draw. However, on this shot, I do prefer the Note 20 Ultra. It is just an overall sharper and cleaner image. Now let me explain. It might not be so obvious when we are looking at these at 4K resolution. If we zoom in 200%, look at the sharpening that's happening on the iPhone. So the iPhone is trying to compensate for the softness in low light for the ultra wide camera with software sharpening, and that is very, very obvious here in the tree areas as well as the clouds, and I'm definitely not a fan of that. So here I do think that the Note 20 Ultra is doing better. And here's another shot, and again I do prefer the Note 20 Ultra here. It's just a cleaner image overall, and it's also brighter and sharper. So when it does come to the ultra wide camera, I am liking the Note 20 Ultra in low light. Now what about selfies? Good old selfies. Both actually do a really good job here. You can see we've got lots of detail, very sharp images, differences in skin tone. Once again, both smartphones can also get a wider field of view from the front-facing cameras. So if you do want to get more people into your shots, you'll be able to do that. And the iPhone is a little bit wider compared to the Note 20 Ultra. This is something that I have noticed. Now, what about dynamic range? So I did go into a few tricky dynamic range situations, and I did prefer the iPhone overall because it actually favors the subject when it comes to exposure, and it has clipped a few highlights in the clouds. So if you look towards the background, it has clipped a few highlights. However, it is giving you a more overall pleasing shot compared to the Note. Now, I wanted to test this out even more. So here on this shot, the iPhone hasn't really clipped many highlights in the background. It looks about the same as what we've got on the Note, but the foreground is much, much brighter, and you've got a much more usable selfie, in my opinion, on the iPhone compared to the Note 20 Ultra. However, when it comes to portraits from the front-facing camera, the Note does get an advantage. So here is a standard shot taken from both devices, and I think both are actually doing a really good job when it comes to edges. I really can't notice any faults on either of them.
And they also come with two of the very best camera setups you can get, with maybe just the Huawei Mate 40 Pro and the Pixel 5 giving them a run for their money. But as is the theme with this video, I think what photo looks best is also very personal. So without knowing which camera took which photo, although I will keep them on the same side for continuity, I want you guys to decide as I show you some camera samples which you think looks best. As whenever I do camera comparisons, some people want bright, punchy, Instagram-ready shots, and others want realistic, true-to-life photos that maybe they can edit afterwards. There is, of course, an objective, technical aspect to photography, but there's also a huge subjective part, which is more pleasing to your eye. So do you reckon you know which phone is A and which is B? And also, do you have a favorite? Well, I can tell you that phone A on the left is the Note 20 Ultra, and therefore, of course, phone B on the right is the iPhone 12 Pro Max. And I'm sure you'd agree, but you really can't go wrong with either. The Note is the clear winner when it comes to zoom, but I think selfies, portrait shots, and even video on the iPhone is a little bit better. Now the lighting is definitely a little tricky in here, which hopefully will be a good test of the cameras. This is being shot at 4K 30 on both, and this, if you're regular on my channel, you'll know, is Fred, who is not my cat, he's my neighbor's cat, but he comes and hangs out, and he's also a great subject for shooting some video. Now, just looking at the screen side by side, I can tell that the Note 20 is a lot warmer. I think the white balance on the iPhone is a little more realistic. If we bring it up to my spotlight here, you can hopefully see how it controls the dynamic range.
The most extreme set of cameras in the industry, while Apple offers a set of cameras that's comparable to the Galaxy S20 Plus if you do the math. Its new claim to fame is better software and an in-body stabilization feature that only professional cameras include, though obviously the winner is defined by the results and not the spec sheet. The odd part is that I thought that I was going to drift more to the Galaxy, but I just can't. It is a matter of taste though, as those of you looking for more dramatic results, you will be better served by the Ultra. The iPhone is warmer, brighter in the shadows, and even if Apple doesn't disclose the size of its sensor, it pulls just as much depth of field as the Galaxy in close-ups. I also prefer the ultra-wide on the iPhone as it offers less distortion on the borders, and as long as you stick to the primary or the 2.5 times optical zoom, you'll be fine. The Galaxy is just mind-boggling with its periscopic zoom lens pushing 5x, and even if you go up to 10x hybrid. If zoom matters to you, the Ultra should be your phone, but I'm the type that feels that 5x is just too much. In low light, I will flunk both devices on the ultra-wide, and I'll also do the same on the telephoto because both devices disable the lens and deliver a very bad digital crop. Really, only the primaries are what I would call comparable. And then in portraits, you again have to pick your poison. I feel that Samsung is just too dramatic and it forgets that we humans have ears. And then Apple on the other hand nails depth crazy well, and Deep Fusion owns skin tones. Its problem is trying to handle 2 or more subjects. Where the iPhone wins is video, and this is all gimmicks aside. Sure, the Galaxy can do 8K, which I still find poorly implemented, and the iPhone can do Dolby Vision video, which 95% of you will want to disable on day one. For me, it's the fact that I can trust an iPhone as my B camera, at least during the day. I feel Apple's codec does a better job at handling dynamic range and detail, though the Galaxy is no slouch at being a close second. But then Apple's IBIS makes the footage look like if I'm vlogging on a gimbal, while the Galaxy comes close so long as you have enough light to not ruin the footage with the warping that plagues EIS. And then selfie video is a pretty tight comparison, where if it wasn't for the rolling shutter on the Galaxy, I'd call it a close tie. To conclude, let's be honest, this was a very difficult battle. On one hand, we have the best and most advanced iPhone that Apple has ever made, but then on the other, we have the most beloved Samsung Galaxy that's actually not the best smartphone that Samsung makes.
The first thing I instantly noticed in photos and video are just how well Samsung nailed the colors in this camera. In the past, Samsung had a bit of a reputation for oversaturating photos and video and making them just a little bit too contrasty, but that's not the case here. Even skin tones are absolutely bang on and natural. In this shot, I did use the live focus mode that uses software to blur out the background, and it did a pretty darn good job overall. Video stabilization is another area where these cameras excel. Remember, all of this is handheld and it almost looks like it's being shot with a gimbal.
So this is inside the old radar base, and obviously you're gonna hear some crazy amount of echo and stuff like that, but this place looks super cool right now. Obviously this was decommissioned, I believe, all the way back in the 70s. The Americans used to use it for radar back in the Cold War, but right now it's just the structure left and it looks pretty darn cool. And it's also a really great opportunity to test the HDR capabilities of the Note 20 Ultra. So yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Front-facing video can be shot at 4K up to 60 FPS, and again, I was very impressed here. It doesn't quite get as wide as I'd like, but the colors and contrast are excellent and sharpness is too. You can also flip the phone around to use the rear-facing cameras, but you'll probably have issues with framing since you can't see yourself. You will get some awesome background blur from that huge 108 megapixel sensor though. There isn't much left to the old radar base, and no one really comes up here save for some graffiti artists and airsoft players, but it's an awesome place to test out new cameras. There's color everywhere, and the stark contrast between multicolored art and the decaying structures makes for some great photography and videography. The Note 20 Ultra comes equipped with a 5x optical periscope lens, and since the radar base is near a flight path for a local airport, I was able to get some shots of a couple of aircraft flying by. Pretty crazy for a phone camera. Beyond the 5x optical zoom, it can also use software to get a 50x hybrid zoom, which can be incredibly helpful for viewing signs that are too far away to read with the naked eye. The radar base was built to be completely self-sufficient, so there are decaying structures in multiple areas all over the place, including this one that has a great view of the cliffs on the shoreline. Again, the video on this phone is absolutely incredible, and using the ultra-wide camera inside the building like this makes for some epic shots. This building features some neat artwork as well, but the main attraction is this side window with a view of the ocean. This shot shows how good the HDR capability of this phone is. Everything in the frame is perfectly exposed, from the dimly lit walls of the building to the bright sunny sky. Out on the edge of the cliff, you can see that large 108 megapixel sensor going to work. There's no live focus mode being used here, but the cliffs in the background are naturally out of focus. Nice. You can see that coming into play even more with objects that are close to the camera. The closer the subject, the more blurred the background will become. After the radar base, I went alone to the top of Signal Hill and got a few snaps of Cabot Tower. Most of these were shown in my full review, which you can check out by hitting the link up in the top right-hand corner of this video. I honestly didn't think the 5x periscope lens was going to be all that useful, but now after using it, I'm completely sold on its usefulness. I'd take a periscope over a 2x telephoto any day at this point. Again, I just want to reiterate here, colors are looking very natural and not oversaturated at all, and despite all the wind up here, video was still very well stabilized. I do want to briefly touch on 8K video here. I didn't shoot much of it honestly because although it is incredibly sharp and it is cool that a phone camera can shoot 8K, it's not all that usable. Dynamic range and stabilization are both crippled in the 8K mode, and 4K ends up looking a little better as a result. Plus, there aren't all that many people that are going to be natively able to view 8K video, so you might as well just shoot 4K anyway. Alright, then it's on to some night shots. Every shot you're currently seeing was taken in near pitch darkness. I even took some video to show you what my eyes were seeing compared to what the camera sees when it stitches together those photos. The camera can easily see in the dark, and it does an excellent job overall. Obviously, there are times where it won't capture things perfectly, and you can forget about trying to shoot moving subjects at night, but most of the time, the night mode works incredibly well. Even the periscope camera works with night mode, although it has an f3 aperture, which isn't great in low light. To say that I'm impressed with what Samsung has done with these cameras is an understatement. It feels like they've come a long way with the cameras on the Note 20 Ultra.